And welcome to tonight's edition of the One Hood Power Hour, 8 days from the midterm elections. I am your co-host, Pahari Mosley, here with my illustrious co-host, Miracle Jones. How you doing, Miracle?
I am doing well on this Halloween Monday, which is, I guess, very rare to have like a holiday and the week before election. So I know it's a lot of stuff, happening in Pennsylvania right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, now definitely a lot going on. We have, the governor's election and the Senate election. A Senate election as being watched by political pundits and political operatives and all types of political leaders from both sides of the aisle all over the country. One of the most important Senate elections. We are a week out from the debate that happened on the 25th. Miracle, any reflections on Tuesday night's debate that was watched, all around the country and in some ways all over the world?
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting debate. Of course, the conversation really primarily focused on how Fetterman performed, given this was his first public live event since the announcement that he had suffered a stroke earlier in the campaign season. And again, for a lot of people, it was, mixed reviews. A lot of people were talking about how disability justice and access to elections and government, but it was also a conversation about what are the requirements to run for office and to be elected official, and what happens, especially during this mass disabling event, but it's COVID-19. What does it mean to have ongoing and changing conditions of politicians? Again, there's ongoing conversations about, fitness for duty, but for a lot of people, they were energized to see Fetterman engage. He did have a couple of, missteps at the very beginning, but he recovered. And for people who have survived strokes or know people who've survived strokes, they were saying this is par for the course. And again, Oz hit home on a lot of, issues. It got his point across. It was possibly the only Senate debate that we're going to have in Pennsylvania. And for a lot of folks, it was just a clear depiction of what the issues were, despite some of the, personal behaviors of the candidates. It was really a focus on the issues, and that was something that I think a lot of people took away, that there are clear, distinctive policy difference between the two candidates, and there's a reason and a clear difference between the two. So this is, again, a very contentious debate, a very well-funded, two well-funded candidates. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. And again, we know here in Pennsylvania, it's going to come down to turnout, as well as how fast we're able to canvass these ballots, because again, we can't start counting these ballots until election day. So it's going to be very interesting as we wait to see who actually wins the election.
Yes, and as you said, there's been a lot of national and international coverage, of the race in Pennsylvania, in particular, the debate last Tuesday evening. A lot of people really got to see John Fetterman for the first time since the stroke, and clearly some questions were raised, but I think one of the interesting things that have come out of it, seems to be there's been kind of a circling of the wagons, for lack of a better term, around John Fetterman's candidacy. This is a race that is the margins are razor thin, and it's so close that I think even some of Fetterman's, biggest supporters who may have not, thought that the performance last Tuesday night, was stellar. I think they feel that, the race is still so close that, regardless of that performance, where he stands on the positions, matters much more. And much like many of the medical experts have said that, this is, typical of someone in the healing process of the stroke. And obviously it'll be up to voters throughout the 67 counties of Pennsylvania to determine, whether they think that he is on the road to recovery. And once, he would take office in January, that healing process would continue. And by, this time next year, he would, clearly show signs of a vast improvement from where he is right now. So it's going to be totally fascinating. But he raised $2 million in the 24 hours after the debate. So clearly, his support from around the country and here in Pennsylvania has not wavered. I saw Bob Brady, the chairman of the Philadelphia Democratic Party, on MSNBC earlier today, speaking, very highly of the vote that they expect to come out of the city of Philadelphia for John Fetterman. So we're going to continue to watch how this race plays out over the last 8 days, how much the debate on the 25th of October will impact, the outcome, and how Oz and Fetterman will close their campaigns in the final days. I know John Fetterman is planning a big rally in Philadelphia with former President Barack Obama, and Oz is planning a large rally here in the western part of the state this weekend as well with former President Donald Trump. So we are definitely in the throes of the final days of this important midterm election. Former presidents are crisscrossing the state. Surrogates are crisscrossing the state. I know congressional leader James Clyburn from South Carolina was in the area campaigning for Chris DeLuzio. So, we are at that point in the political calendar where all hands are on deck. The ads are going to continue to run for the next 8 days. And, right around this time, 8 days from now, the polls will be beginning to close. And then sometime after that, either in the hours or the days following, we will find out who will be the next governor of Pennsylvania, who will be the next senator of Pennsylvania, and who will be representing Pennsylvania in the new Congress. So, Miracle, is definitely a lot of stuff to continue to pay attention to, and a lot going on.
Yeah, I know a lot of stuff. We've even found ourselves somewhat in the middle, of this Senate debate. It is, coming down to the wire here, and there's like so much happening. We saw in Brazil the leftist win, which really signifies a working class alliance within the global South. We've also are still paying attention to what's happening not only in Ukraine, but also with China. And so there are a lot of international issues as well that have, dominated the headlines. But coming back to the election, we're so close, but so far away. Tomorrow is the voter registration vote by mail application deadline. You must be registered to vote in order to apply for the vote by mail application. The deadline is tomorrow if you want to vote by mail. So apply here in Pennsylvania. If not, if you're registered to vote, you will be voting in person if you have not voted by mail and you've not received your ballot. You want to make sure there's been, of course, every election there's a lot of issues, human error, mistakes happen. You want to make sure you're going online and tracking your ballot and checking to see if you got a ballot sent out, especially if you have recently moved. You want to double check. You want to do everything you can to avoid having to vote provisionally on election day. So please make sure you are double checking your voter registration. double checking your polling place, and double checking whether or not you apply to vote by mail this election season, because it's going to be a very, very stressful and contentious election. We know that Pennsylvania is one of the states that people have already promised to litigate, to go through and try to find every issue they can to not only question ballots, but question voters. And so you want to make sure that people are well prepared. They know the rules and the regulations. They know where their polls are, because it is going to be an election season like none other. And with that, we also know that there's a lot of bills that were passed with budgets. Even here in Pittsburgh, we are in budget season to determine not only what our budget's going to look like for the next couple of years, but also determine what the new chief of police is going to look like. We know there's a lot of issues that are happening, and locally, this is one way that you're able to get involved. So please make sure you go and attend some of those hearings. They're in person. You can also send public comments if you're a resident of Pittsburgh, because the budget determines everything from how much money is used for violence prevention, how much money is used for, bike lanes, how much money is used for these salt trucks. Winter is coming, and making sure we have enough salt trucks. So again, budget season is here. It's going to be very imperative that people pay attention. So I know people are exhausted with these elections and these election ads, but also here in Pittsburgh, it's also budget season. So please make sure you're also trying to attend some of these hearings or putting your comment into the city as well. And like I said, we know there is this election. We've got the gubernatorial election, the Senate election, your congressional elections, as well as your city council elections. And the question we had earlier was who can vote? And if you're a Pennsylvania resident and you're registered to vote, there will be a ballot, and there will be someone for you to vote for on election day. So please make sure you're paying attention. And with that, I'll turn back over to Kahari.
Yeah, and just staying on the topic of the Senate race, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette today endorsed Dr. Mehmet Oz for the U.S. Senate, which means the two largest papers in the state have split their endorsements. In Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the state's largest paper, endorsed John Fetterman about a week or so ago, and now the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has endorsed Mehmet Oz, and as the recent elections have suggested, these endorsements don't necessarily carry the same weight as they did in past years and past election cycles, but it still will be quite interesting to see what, if any, impact these endorsements have on voters throughout the state. I think one other interesting development is that Congressman Mike Doyle, has been much more vocal in the past week or so, reminding voters that he is not running for election, and he will be supporting the Democratic nominee for Congress, Summer Lee, to assuage any potential voter confusion that's out there, where people may be thinking they are voting for the longtime Congressman Mike Doyle when they see the name Mike Doyle on the ballot, and making sure they don't get him confused with the Republican Plum Borough Councilman Mike Doyle, who is running against Summer Lee. So that is also something that we've seen in recent days here in the greater Pittsburgh area, Miracle.
Yes, and again, I know people like, why do we need to vote? Like, what do elections bring? Well, we say voting is local, and it starts locally, and so our next couple of guests are going to be talking about some issues that are facing the ballot box and some issues that they need people to vote on and to encourage and motivate elected officials to take action on. And so we're going to be talking a lot about advocacy and policy for this next segment, because there's a lot of issues that are happening, a lot of legislation that's being introduced right now, at the local level, we know that the state legislature is on recess so that people can get out the votes. But our city and county councils are still active, and so we're going to be talking with Dignity Act Now Collective, with Madusa Carter, and Melannie, talking about something that's happening tomorrow at City Council, and then we're going to be talking to Brittany Smalls from Black Voters Matter, who is going to be talking about some events happening this week, as well as how people can gather to fight back against voter suppression and to fight for voting rights. So we have a really great show for you this evening. And before we get to our first guest, is there anything else you wanted to add, Kahari?
I think that covers much of what's happening, in the political. Well, I guess one, other thing that I think that we would be remiss to not mention was the brutal attack uh, against Paul Pelosi, the husband of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, which I think underscores the level of fear and anxiety that many people have about potential violence surrounding this election. As a carryover from January 6th, as a carryover from the 2020 election. There was a man who found his way into the Pelosi home in San Francisco and bludgeoned Mr. Paul Pelosi, 82-year-old man, who I said again is the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He is currently recovering in ICU from surgery to repair his fractured skull, but doctors say he will make a full recovery, and I think it's just a chilling example of how far from the norms um, our political atmosphere has gone, in the last several years, particularly since the 2020 election, and really, um, I think signals a reason for us all to be very vigilant, for those doing election work, those working to turn out the vote, who will be out at polls on election day, who will be looking to make sure that the votes are counted orderly and fairly after the polls close next Tuesday evening. That we have to stay vigilant and do everything that we can to prevent these kinds of acts and potential other acts of violence surrounding the outcome of the 2022 election.
Thank you so much for that, Kahari. And we're going to turn now to our first guest. Our first two guests are from the Dignity Act Collective, and they are here to talk about an action that's happening tomorrow at the Pittsburgh City Council. And so we want to welcome Madusa Carter from the Dignity Act Collective, and I believe also Melannie may be joining us too. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna start with you, Medusa. Can you just talk a little bit about the Dignity Act Collective, what you all do, and what you all are fighting for?
Thank you so much, Miracle. Peace and blessings, everybody. It's an honor to be here. The Dignity Act Now Collective was founded in 2019. Um, we essentially are advocates for those who are currently incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, mainly around the conditions and decarcerating women, trans, and non-binary people in Pennsylvania. We first we went from a campaign to a collective. We initially spoke with uh, Representative Morgan Cephas, was introducing dignity bills for incarcerated women in Pennsylvania. We were able to go to her and get her to hold off on introducing the bill so that impacted people could weigh in and be able to create policy that actually impacted those who would be impacted by the bill. So we were able to create some policy, and with that, we were also able to like galvanize our community around these particular issues. And so we went from that campaign into a collective. Myself, um, Melannie Taylor, who's on the call today, Rachel Santiago, Mary Enoch, Elizabeth, and Dana Lomax Eiler Williams. we formed the collective to basically be able to bring in more impacted people to show up as experts on their own issues.
So could you give us a quick update on where things currently stand, with the bill, particularly um, now that we're close to legislative session ending, in these final days, and you know, uh, the entire Pennsylvania House up for reelection. How is if it is in any way, the election impacting it, and this is something that if it doesn't pass soon, will it have to be reintroduced in the next session?
Yeah, so we passed it through the House unanimously, which was really unheard of. Representative Mike Jones really advocated amongst his constituents with the other Republicans. He really went and spoke to everybody. He got folks to sign on that typically don't sign on to criminal justice reform bills. So we were able to get we were able to get this to be a bipartisan bill, and so it was really smooth in terms of the transition throughout the House. We are now in the Senate Judiciary Committee where we kind of are at a standstill. Um, and I think that with the election, but also with the redistricting of the redistricting has impacted us, and then I think also that the Republicans don't want to be seen as soft on crime. So while this was, partly um, partly a Republican bill, essentially, because they were the ones who were able to actually get it over the hump. Many criminal justice reform bills do not actually make it out of committee, so it was a big win for us. With the help of like Dream Corps, which is a national organization, Ardella's House, Tony Willis, um, and Morgan Cephas working with Mike Jones. We were able to like I said, get it unanimously passed. What we're now facing is the American Conservative Union, which is a very Republican organization. It has a lot of money. They back most of the Republicans. They seem to be intimidating some of the Republicans around this particular bill. So what we're trying to do is to get the word out, um, and to get folks to lean on their sentence. If we have to, I know there's like a lame duck uh, sort of vote in session that could happen maybe in November. However, we are looking towards next year. But the biggest thing is to make sure that those who are impacted by this legislation are aware of it, so that once it does pass, inshallah, right, that they are aware of it and can use it, and families and loved ones of these individuals are also able to advocate for the change of these conditions.
Thank you. And I'm going to come to you, Mona. Can you talk a little bit about some of the conditions that are impacting people in prison? I know you said Madusa was talking about impacted people creating some of the solutions, but can you talk about what those conditions are and what you're fighting for in this legislation?
Yes. So in this bill, HB 1419, um, it talks about prohibiting the shackling of pregnant women and prohibiting solitary confinement of pregnant women who are in prison. It also provides a trauma-informed care training for correctional officers interacting with pregnant women and postpartum women. So this bill just it really focuses on the women, people who are also non-gender conforming. So it focuses on pregnant women who are in prison and advocating for also our mental health. A lot of people, whenever they are coming into prison, the correctional officers, the way that they interact with people who are just entering can be traumatizing, can be triggering. and it can push them, instead of helping them grow, it can hurt them. So this is just also another way of trying to get a system in place so we can call people out on their actions if they are re-traumatizing people whenever they are coming in.
And so, go ahead.
America, you can go ahead if you had a follow-up.
Yes, and you were saying that this bill changes a lot of things. What I know tomorrow you're going to be at City Council. Can you just first, you Madusa and then Melannie, can you talk about what you're asking for City Council to do and why you're asking for City Council to make this resolution?
We're asking for the city council to recognize this legislation. And again, in this climate of elections and what have you, we want folks to also be clear on what we're voting folks in to do. And people who typically are viewing mass incarceration or criminal justice reform as like this tough on crime sort of thing, we want those folks to also um, be interrogated around their policies and around their belief systems, because this is a system that's harming folks. So we're asking city council. We had the city council in Philadelphia that did create a resolution, and it was unanimous in recognizing this bill. And so we're asking Pittsburgh, we're asking Pennsylvania to recognize this, because this is an egregious act against humans. We're talking about like mothers that are giving birth, and they're taking their child immediately, not allowing any skin to skin contact. And so parts of the bill is just even to allow 72 hours of just being with your child, making sure that people's loved ones are not shipped way across the state where they're not able to actually get to see their loved ones because of the distance. We're asking that, not just trauma informed care for the CEOs, but we would actually like that police officers were trauma informed as well, because 86% of the women, trans, and non-binary people who become incarcerated, they have experienced some trauma prior to incarceration. So we want to make sure that our state, I think our state is informed about this, and that our state is also playing a major role in making sure that we fix this broken system.
Yeah, so just echoing that. Also, I ask that people spread the word about the bill, and tell other people to also to call their senators, and so that the bill can be passed. Yeah, so that's what I ask. I ask that you support the bill and telling people about it, and keeping it in the mainstream.
Cara, you had a question?
Yeah, just a final question, like for those who want to get involved, what's going on tomorrow at City Council. How can they get involved? How can they reach out to their representative in City Hall to let their voice known and show their support for this piece of legislation?
So folks will be meeting at 10 a.m. On tomorrow. If you are in another state or you're in another place, we're asking you to reach out to your senators and tell them to vote yes to House Bill 1419. We're also asking for folks to sign on to our sign-on letter that we wrote out to both legislators and senators. We had over 40 organizations that signed on to our letter. And so we just, as many organizations as we can get that can support this bill and support the passing of it. We're asking folks to follow us online. We're at on Instagram, we're at Dignity Act Now _ on Twitter, we're at Dignity Act Now. So we're asking folks to follow us, get on our page, and then also sign on to the sign-on letter, so that even if we have to, reintroduce the bill, that folks are already informed and are already ready to go, and that it won't be such a tedious task in getting this bill over the hump. Because partly this bill is symbolic, because we banned the shackling of mothers during childbirth back in 2011, but the practices of the DOC don't necessarily adhere to the legislation. So we want to make sure that it's being implemented on the ground by holding the system accountable, and also by people being able to get access to that information and know their rights.
And so, talk about a little bit about changing some of these conditions. Can you also talk how this impacts the Allegheny County Jail? Because we know there's been a lot of conversations about women and other gender oppressed people and the conditions in the Allegheny County Jail. So can you talk a little bit how this bill would also help people locally?
Yes, so this is a statewide city and county, so it impacts all places that are housing women, trans, and non-binary people. The Allegheny County Jail, Philadelphia County Jail, all the jails throughout Pennsylvania will be impacted by this legislation. And that was one of the things that we wanted to be sure of, because oftentimes when state legislation is passed, it does not necessarily affect the county jails. So this particular bill does impact the county jails, does impact the city jails. So it will be enforced across the board.
Yeah. Yes, and also adding to that, also in the bill, there's where it talks about unlimited, not unlimited, but an appropriate amount of feminine hygiene products, because that is something that affects all prison areas, because there aren't enough given whenever they are ministrating. So this bill also allows them to have more than just the allotted amount, which is like, I believe like 6 or 7.
Thank you. And could you talk a little bit about, why that is so impactful? Why that's something that obviously folks, live in their everyday lives may overlook, a detail like that. Could you explain why it's so important to advocate for things like that, when folks are in these situations?
I think the biggest thing is that when you talk about mass incarceration, typically folks envision a man, and a lot of the support that's available to us, that are available for incarcerated folks, are particularly, geared towards the men. But in the last 10 years, we've seen women, trans, and non-binary people become incarcerated at 500 times the rate that of men. We also seen that that the system is inadequate to house women, trans and non-binary people, specifically around womb health care, reproductive justice, those particular issues, in terms of being able to get just a regular gynecological checkup. We have a lot of women coming out of these state facilities who are getting terminal illnesses, because the prisons are built on toxic waste dumps. We had just a couple weeks ago, the women up at Muncie Correctional Facility were bathing in brown water and drinking brown water, and the system essentially wasn't doing anything about it. And so this is not the first time that something like this has happened. That prison was built in 1938. They haven't changed anything about it, from asbestos to mold to all types of inhumane conditions. Same thing with the county jails. These are old buildings that were typically created to house men. So none of these facilities are adequate to house women. The system is not prepared to house women. And as much as we're incarcerating women, trans, non-binary people for, a lot of these are non-violent offenses. A lot of these are defending themselves against an attacker. A lot of these are poverty crimes that they're committing. And instead of getting any redirection um, to different type of rehabilitations, we're being criminalized for addiction, we're being criminalized for mental health, we're being criminalized for not being able to afford hygiene items. And so the biggest part that I want folks to take away is that the way that society, with the repealing of the Roe versus Wade, with the lack of access to abortion health care in the first place, so this is no new thing. Black and brown women have not had access to abortion health care. So this is not a new thing. What's peculiar about it is that it's even more egregious when you are incarcerated, and people tend to, once you're criminalized, they demonize you and feel like you don't have a say, you don't have a right, and that even goes down to your womb health care.
And so, can you, as we wrap, I know you said you're meeting at City Council tomorrow. You've asked people to call their legislatures in the coming weeks. Is there anything else that you would need people to do to really help have this bill become a reality?
Yeah, talk to your loved ones, because throughout the state, again, a lot of people, when they are criminalized, they don't believe that they can vote. They don't believe that a lot of people are not getting access to housing. A lot of people are not getting access to employment. And because of this demonization, people are not able to get their lives back. So the more we talk about it, the more we create awareness, the more that people can see us as human beings and not just criminals, to be essentially ostracized by society. So talk to your loved ones, talk to your families, and write a letter. Write a letter to somebody who's incarcerated. Write a letter to a mother. Write a letter to a caregiver. Write a letter to somebody who's behind there, because it's the worst. It's the worst health. It's the worst human rights issue of our time. What they're doing, because once you take the mother out of the community, you devastate that entire community.
Thank you all so much for taking the time out just to have this conversation. We wish you the best of luck tomorrow. We'd love to have you on, in the future, talk more about this legislation, as well as the conditions, impacting gender people in incarceration.
It's definitely an honor to be on this show. Thank y'all so much for having us, and just giving us a platform to talk about it. Um, yeah, everybody follow us on whatever platform, all the social medias. Follow us, and then also, like I said, talk to your loved ones in your community.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you for joining us.
And like you said, that is just another reason, when we talk about the power of the vote, having this legislation come up is one of the reasons why we're fighting so hard to put people in positions of power who can make these decisions and who can actually care about impacted people. And, politics is very difficult. Like they said, that it passed, the House and it stalled in the Senate. And it's one of the frustrations that people have with like legislation and electoral organizing, electoral politics. It really does take a whole village. And so I'm really thankful for the Dignity Act Now Collective and for the work that they're doing. And to talk more about, advocacy, organizing, policy, getting out the vote, we're very excited and thankful to have our next guest from Black Voters Matter, who's going to be here, who is here based here in Pennsylvania. They have a lot of events happening this week and next. And so we want to welcome to the platform Brittany Smalls from Black Voters Matter.
Hello, everyone, my people.
Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I know you're busy, you're in the thick of it, but can you just talk a little bit about Black Voters Matter and some of the work that you do?
Definitely. So Black Voters Matter is a national organization based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We're in about 13 states. We're also based here in Pennsylvania. Kalal Edwards is our state organizing manager, and I am our Western PA organizer. I just recently started back with Black Voters Matter and excited to get back to love and building power across marginalized, predominantly Black communities. And so Black Voters Matter, we do a lot of field work on the ground to engage organizations with Black leadership that are in marginalized communities so we can empower them to be the voice for their communities. So a lot of organizations come in and they want to, kind of change things. They want to, kind of give their agendas for these particular communities, but we believe in empowering groups that are already based in these communities and giving them support in terms of resources and tools, access to information like legislation and policies that are in place that are disenfranchised in our communities, so we can help them become more sustainable.
And so that's that's a lot of work. And I know that, like you said, you're educating and empowering people. Can you just talk a little bit about the attacks on democracy and the attacks on, voting rights, and what your organization is doing to fight back against some of these threats?
Definitely. So we each year we have a campaign that we work on, and we take this campaign throughout the country to enlighten our folks about the pressures of our democracy. This year we're working on our campaign hashtag We Won't Black Down, and we're fighting against the different legislations that are on the table in terms of voting rights, even Roe versus Wade being overturned, some of the local agendas to, disenfranchise our communities across the board. We're doing, trying to leverage these folks. So, what we have people do, we have a coalition that we're building nationally, and we have people text We Matter to 25225. Locally here, we text Philadelphia or Pittsburgh to 25225, contingent on what area we're in. And that's how we can stay in the loop of what is disenfranchising our folks and the policies that need to be changed.
And Brittany, can you talk a little bit, about what has the process been, this fall? There's been a lot, of talk, at least amongst the pundits and in the media, about a certain level of discouragement, a certain lack of enthusiasm compared to 2020. Are you seeing that on the ground? What is the energy that you feel in the communities that you're working with around this upcoming election?
Yeah, it's definitely been a difference from 2020 to now, but we know 2020 was a presidential race. This year is considered a local race, and folks don't necessarily usually come out during the midterms. It's always been a fight for us for our people to understand how important our voices to be heard in local and even more local than national elections. So we are just putting in the work like we've been doing for our folks to understand how important this election is. But I think, to me, there has been a more emphasis on this particular midterm election versus ones in the past, because literally our bodies are on the ballot. Our freedom for choice is on the ballot. Like, it's definitely, and we have to kind of like make it plain for our folks, for them to understand how critical this election cycle is.
And just a quick follow up. And do you see, particularly, around the issue of reproductive justice? We knew with the Hobbs decision earlier this year, for several months, abortion, was the top issue. Reproductive rights, was the top issue, and now it seems like the economy, has taken, economy and other issues have taken back over, and particularly in the young African American women that you're organizing and mobilizing to the polls. How important has reproductive rights been in their conversations about how they're approaching this upcoming election?
It's definitely a top priority and a top issue. Literally, we are there like leading in the discussion when we're talking to young people on the ground, because reproductive rights have been, for Black people, it's been for some time, have been an issue within our community. We know that maternal mortality has been an issue within our community in terms of Black women are the most likely to not get the best healthcare in our system. So it's always been an issue. And I can kind of just send people a reminder of what we've been dealing with and how can we move forward from this point?
Talk about moving forward. You mentioned, the organization started, is based in Atlanta. What we saw from the last election was the legislation that basically criminalized the ability to really organize, to give people food and water as they're standing in these long lines. We know in the South, at least the majority of these polls that have closed down have been in predominantly Black and brown areas. And so as you're like mobilizing and fighting against, voter suppression, how are you able to motivate people to come out and to turn out? Because we have the attacks, the actual, threats on democracy, the threats of people, doing stuff at the ballot box, but then we're also dealing with legislation that's literally targeting your organization. So like, how are you really able to stay motivated and do this work and encourage other folks to do this work as well?
Definitely, because again, we're a movement. We're not just individuals out here doing a job. We're out here empowering folks so that we can do this as a collective effort. So I'm grateful for our partners, such as you all, that we work with collectively. That's how I stay empowered and motivated, because I know that I'm not in this fight alone. There are so many groups and organizations that are in support of the work that Black Voters Matter do, because we do this work alongside our partners. We don't look at ourselves as like a figurehead for this space. We're just literally offering space and a coalition for our people to rise up. So I'm empowered and motivated because I know we're not in this alone. Even the attacks on Twitter, we saw there were numerous attacks on Black Voters Matter. But if you look in the comment section, people were dismantling those myths that people were trying to put up against us. Like, this is an everyday fight, and we understand that's why we continue to do it on. We know it wasn't easy. We know when the Black Panther Party was out, when they got started, a lot of people fought against them, like we, and not, affiliating ourselves with the Black Panther Party, but just understanding that, they were a movement as well that led us to this point. We're fighting injustice, and it's just the nature of this work, social justice.
Yeah. And it's been a rough week for both of our organizations.
Yeah.
But we are pushing through. But can you just talk a little bit about some of the events that you have? Because I think one of the reasons that people love Black Voters Matter is what I like to call, the element of Black joy, and making sure that people are celebrated and honored,
Yes.
and really accepted and respected. So can you just talk a little bit about some of the events y'all have coming? I know you got like Day of Action. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Well, actually, we just got back from the Powerhouse concert in Philly that's put on by the radio station there, Power 99. And we got over 600 people to opt in and say, we're not Black. We won't Black down. Like, it was such a crazy, experience, and I was so excited, and I'm so excited to bring that same energy here in Pittsburgh. We have folks that are traveling from Philadelphia just to join us for our Day of Action. I'm so excited to partner with you all on this Thursday for two amazing events. We have the Power Lunch going on from 11 to 2 right at 1219 Federal Street at one of our Black-owned businesses here in Pittsburgh at Carmine's Express. So I'm so excited to be, I'm asking everybody to come out and let's just, have a good time. We're going to have a DJ, come get some free food, free meals provided by Carmine's. Excited about that. Some merch from both our organizations. I'm so excited about the partners that will be participating. We have APA participating, YVAC participating. We have, I don't want to forget any names. 412 Justice, 412 Justice participating. And we also have Team Grow participating, as well as Project Matter. So I'm excited for all the partners that will be participating in the Power Lunch. And then later on that evening, being a part of your amazing People, Power, and Politics series, where we're bringing the amazing Wallow to the city to, talk about having a conversation with him and spreading some more love and joy to our people. So I'm excited for what this day, Thursday, November 3rd, is about to bring, and we do have some other events that are be taking place with Bethel Church on Friday. I'm still got to get more details on that, but I'm excited for what we have to come.
So it's a busy weekend. I know we're away from elections. Kahari.
Yeah, I apologize if there's any barking in the background. My dog is kind of excited that trick or treaters are coming to the door. Could you talk just a little bit about why you think it's important, to have, more kind of interactions, at a statewide level, and more partnership between, organizations from Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. Obviously, we spent some time together in Philadelphia during the Black Folks Matter retreat.
Yes.
In September, and there was other organizations from the Pittsburgh area. Can you talk about some of the other organizations here in Pittsburgh that are connected to the statewide Black Voters Matter Coalition, Alliance, Collective?
Can you repeat that last part again?
Could you talk about some of the other Pittsburgh-based organizations that are part of the Black Votes Matters statewide network?
Oh, yes. Awesome. I'm so excited. Well, Black Voters Matter PA is a collective of folks from Aliquippa, Erie, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Harrisburg. We're going into Delaware County, Chester City. So there's a big statewide coalition that's based here. But some of the partners here on the ground, as I mentioned, APA, Alliance for Police Accountability, 412 Justice, the amazing One Hood. We also have Project Matters, Team Grow, Western Power. We have I'm trying to think. It's so many within the coalition. Please don't forgive me. Bethel AME Church. We also have Take Action, My Volley. Yes, how can I forget them? Wyback. There's about 15 partners within the coalition here in Pittsburgh. We also have CEA Pittsburgh by Brother Rashad. We have about 15 partners here. If I'm forgetting anybody's name, please don't charge it to my head. Charge it to my head, not my heart, because it's been a crazy busy day. So we coming to a close. But I'm grateful for the partners that we have here in Pittsburgh and growing, because we definitely are making strides with connecting with organizations and some of the other communities that we have not tapped into yet here. So we definitely about to make some more noise within the city so that we can expand and grow together and really impact our community and be a force that, not to be reckoned with. You know what I mean? Like, if we come together and have a collective voice and bring that to the energy to election day, we are unstoppable.
And so as we wrap, can you just talk about how people can get more involved, how they can join your coalition or find out more about events coming up?
Definitely. So if you want to get involved with Black Voters Matter, you can send an email to myself or Kalal. My email is Brittany@blackvotersmatterfund.org, or Kalal's email is KALLEL@blackvotersmatterfund.org, or just simply text Pittsburgh to 25225 from your phone.
All right, Brittany, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a very busy campaign season. We're a minimum of a week away to be able to take a moment. So please enjoy the rest of your Monday evening.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And so that has been, another episode of the One Hood Power Hour. We still have some stuff to talk about, so please do not go away. But like we said, Election Day is next Tuesday. Polls open. Please double check your voter registration. You can put the links in the chat to double check your ballot, double check your voter registration. Just because if you did not vote in the last in the primary election, your polling place may have changed with redistricting. Some people are in different areas now, so please double check your polling place. Again, if you want to vote by mail, it's COVID, you're not sure you want to go in person, be that as it may, please make sure you have applied to go and get your mail-in ballot. You're going to still go downtown to the Board of Elections as well, apply in person. Again, please be very kind and patient with the Board of Election staff. They are swamped. They're processing so much information. So please, please, please just, show patience. They're trying to get the poll workers trained. So please, 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 kindness is key, and patience in dealing with this election. Kahari?
I just want to give another reminder, as Sister Brittany said, this Thursday evening at the Black Box, we will be joined by Wallow from the award-winning podcast, $1 Million Worth of Game. He'll be joining us from the city of Brotherly Love, sharing a lot of his insight. Last Thursday, we had a fantastic event with Lupe Fiasco, so we're just really excited. And I'm asking everyone around to come out and join us for another edition of People, Power, and Politics.
Yes. And also, Brittany did mention, this Thursday, we're going to be on the north side. It's Federal Street. So please stop by if you're, in the area. We'll have some conversations. We'll be talking about vote by mail, protect your vote. Make sure you are signing the back of your ballot. Again, make sure you follow up with the Dignity Now collective. There's so much going on. And again, no one should be in a situation where they don't have enough menstrual items, or having birth while shackled, or having their baby really stolen from them moments after birth. So please, 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 follow up with all these organizations. And like we said, we here at the One Hood Media Network, it's always something going on. We're always busy. For those of you who've been following, me on the other programming, we're part of a program called This Week in White Supremacy. We are celebrating our 100th episode, and we are taping it live tomorrow in person at 6 p.m. We'll put the invite in the chat, but please make sure you register. We got to make sure we have enough items for folks who are coming in. We don't want anyone to feel left out, left behind, but please make sure you are registered to come. Well, a lot of other things are happening. We'll be making announcements. I think premiering something tomorrow. We'll put it, in the universe. We'll have some more announcements next week. So we have more events coming, more trainings coming. We would be remiss before we end to not mention the shooting that happened last week. We here at the One Hood Media Network, our hearts are going out to those who are struggling with gun violence. We have some programmings that we're going to be starting in the next couple of weeks, really to talk about gun violence and to change the way gun violence is showing up in our communities, our neighborhoods. So please make sure you're staying involved, you're getting connected. Please mentor the youth, hire people out there. We are going to wrap up. We're going to show you a video talking about another situation with the elections and these corporate attacks on our elections. But before we get to that video, Kahari, is there anything else that you want to say?
I think we covered everything.
All right. Well, for Kahari and I, we hope you have a great Halloween. Hope you got trick-or-treating, got all the candy. Don't eat it in one go. And with that, we bid you a good evening. We can't wait to see you next week for a very special pre-election conversation.
To talk about Jeffrey Yash, who is the richest man in Pennsylvania. He's one of the biggest dark money funders. across the whole nation. Yes, supports elected officials who support QAnon. We all know that they are white supremacists, right-wing extremists.
He wants to not be known. He doesn't want his face to be seen. He doesn't want you to know his name because it benefits him and all of the power brokers that want to turn this into a rich person's haven for them to not know that this billionaire is doing this under our noses. And we got to start talking about it. We got to say it. We got to name it. And we have to call them by name. We got to make that name famous. Billionaire Jeff Yass that works right in here, owns this place, that refuses to give their money to anything that is going to support our communities, but in fact brings us down.